Hi guys, so today I'm going to do a video on my experiences with PTSD. Now I got a message a couple of days ago on Tumblr to talk about this subject specifically in one video. Now as if any of you follow my YouTube channel, you'll know that I have mentioned it before, but this video will be specifically on PTSD. So hopefully if anyone has experienced this, they can find some comfort and know that they're not alone, and if they have any questions or just want some advice or support, I'm here to help in any way that I can. I'm not an expert, I'm not medically trained in this subject, I'm simply a victim of PTSD and someone who can share their experiences and help in any way that I can try my best. So firstly, I wanted to say that PTSD, as a lot of you will know, some of you won't, it stands for post-traumatic stress disorder. It comes in a lot of different forms and it can be triggered by anything. To some, the thing that triggers the person will be viewed as, quite small, and others wouldn't be affected by it, but it simply depends on that person and their self at that time. So basically I'm going to talk about my experiences. So I'd say I've always been slightly anxious and had anxiety since I started year 7 and above. Obviously I'm 21 now, believe it or not, and I'm not in school now, so my anxiety, I would say, has improved, but it's still there. But anyway, this post-traumatic stress was started by a specific incident that happened in 2011. Now, as some of you will know from my other videos, 2011 was my probably worst year of my life so far. It was when I basically had a mental breakdown and had to leave my sixth form. I did that year from home, the half year that we have from home, and my exams from home, which I couldn't do all of them because I had severe panic attacks. But cutting a long story short, that's going off subject, that was the year my depression, anxiety and OCD was probably at its peak. Now my post-traumatic stress didn't start until September of that year. In September, it was around maybe the 13th, I'm not sure the specific day. I don't think it's good for me to really know the specific day, but my cousin was getting married and I was in no mental state to be there around a lot of people. It wouldn't have been good for me. So at that time, my mum, dad and brother were gonna go and I was gonna stay in the house on my own with a couple of friends who I was close to at the time. And yeah, then they would have came back late and it would have been, fine, just a normal girls' night in. Anyway, what happened was my mum and dad and brother left in the morning. It's quite hard for me to talk about, but I'm a lot better with it now. I think it's important for me to talk about it. But anyway, so they were all dressed up and they left, and a minivan, when the special vans come to pick you up if you're going somewhere to an event, or if you're going out for the day and it's far, it's like a kind of a taxi service but not a taxi. Anyway, so this minivan thing came to pick up my family, and I was fine. I was just getting ready in my room, just waiting for my friends to come around later. And anyway, I was in with my two dogs and my then cat, Sooty, and so they left, and then a few minutes later the doorbell rang, and I went downstairs, but I didn't answer it because I don't know, I just didn't want to answer it because I was in on my own. And I went downstairs and the dogs were barking, so I wanted to try and make them quiet. And then it continued to ring and it was a bit erratic and strange, so I went back upstairs and I rang my mum and I said, I was like, Mum, are you outside? Because the doorbell keeps ringing and it's quite you know, quite persistent and a bit disturbing. So, you know, if you just text me, I'd let you in. And she said, oh no, I'm not outside. You know, we've gone in the taxi bus thing. It must be, you know, a parcel. Just leave it, and they'll either come back later, or they'll just put it in the porch. So I was like, okay then, no big deal. Just go back to what I'm doing. And then so I went back, and I was just sitting on my bed, and you know, it continued to ring, and it was bothering me a bit. So, you know, I was a bit like, strange. And then I heard this noise, like, I thought it was someone, you know, trying to push a parcel through the door or something, because I was like, you know, this is ridiculous. If, you know, just leave. Obviously, either no one's in, or we don't want to answer the door, just go. So by that time, I was a bit, like, freaked out. I went to the landing, and I went to the front of my house. There's a room in the front upstairs, and I saw this blue car, and I was like, oh, that's strange, you know, why are they still here? And anyway, so I heard that funny noise, and I was on the landing where my cat was, and I went to the top of the stairs, and that moment was possibly the scariest moment in my life. I looked downstairs, and in the porch there was a figure. It was all dark, and they had a balaclava on, and I saw, well, I was guessing, I'm pretty sure it was a man with a crowbar, and they were in my porch. I now know that there was at least two, but at that time I only saw one man. And obviously as a young girl, I was, like 1 month before I turned 18, I was vulnerable, and I had a terrible state mentally. I couldn't have thought that anything worse that could happen, and it was quite ironic because on the news the evening before, they were talking about break-ins. So I'm like, how would you react? What would you do? So that really kind of freaked me out. And anyway, I stood there for a second. I saw what was happening. They were in my porch already. And, you know, the fight or flight instinct came. I knew, I was terrified. I knew if I'd stayed, I was expecting to be seriously hurt, maybe even killed. You know, it depends how the burglar themselves react. Maybe raped. You know, I was terrified. So at that time, you know, thank God, I ran into the bathroom with my phone, climbed onto the sink and opened the window. But as I opened the window, it has a safety lock, so, you know, I was panicking. I opened it, knocked my phone into the sink, didn't want to, you know, go and get it, and then I went onto the roof. And now on my, it's an extension, so on my roof at the time there was a garage next to my extension, so I went onto the roof, onto the garage, and then into a neighbour's house. Obviously I'm like shitting myself. I wasn't really bothered about myself at that time. All I cared about is keeping myself safe for my family, and praying that my pets would be okay, because obviously the dogs were really barking, so I didn't want them to get harmed, and my cat was on the landing. And anyway, I was on the garage roof, and then I put my hands like at the edge of the roof, and I was convinced when I jumped, you know, my arms would go up and I'd probably end up in hospital and, you know, break them. But, you know, miraculously I landed into the neighbour's garden with a few scratches, nothing serious. And the neighbour who lived there at the time, she was, I don't think she's there now, but she was an old lady. Her husband had passed, and, you know, it wasn't the best person that you could have in that situation, because I wasn't in the best state, and obviously I felt awful for having to do that, but I didn't have any choice. So I went in the garden and was banging on the door, screaming, help me, please. And this woman came out, and she was obviously bewildered, and I was shaking, and I was like, someone's broke into my house, you know, please can you help me? I've dropped my phone in the sink. I'm literally freaking out, and I remember asking her to hug me or to just hold me, because I felt like I was going to pass out. But bless her, she was a bit, you know, I don't think she was all there in the head. She was a bit bewildered by it all. So anyway, I was convinced that the people who broken in would somehow have known that I had, you know, I was seeing me on the roof, and obviously been annoyed that I disturbed them and come to the house and then hurt us both. And obviously I didn't have much chance with the old lady and my anxiety filled self. But anyway, she let me use the phone, and I tried to ring my mum on her mobile, but as they were obviously at the wedding, she didn't pick up. And so I rang the police straight away, and they came to the house. So I walked around with the old lady, and then I just ran to them and basically like broke down in the car, and I couldn't look at my house, I couldn't go near. I went straight to the car, and they were a bit worried about me because I was in such a bad way. They wanted to take me to the hospital, but I didn't want to go. And thankfully, at that time, I had my best friend was Pippa, that was her name, and she was one of the few friends who stayed by me when I had my breakdown. She was really supportive and understanding, and I'll forever be thankful to her for helping me. So the policeman took me there to her house, and I got in touch with my mum, thankfully, and obviously she was, in her horrific way because after all I'd been through, but she knew I was safe with my friends, so they stayed at the wedding. And when I got in the police car, I remember going, I don't care if they've taken anything, that's fine. All my dogs and it's my cat, okay? And they said, yeah, they're fine. They must have pulled the door shut to keep them in. And my cat was fine, but I think he'd obviously gone out. So I was like, oh, thank you. And then obviously, basically, I stayed the night at my friend's. Wasn't going back to the house. It wasn't happening. And the next morning, obviously, I did go back home. So I saw my mum and dad straight away, and I just broke down. I felt so uncomfortable in the house. I felt violated. I remember sitting there, every second I was waiting for them to come back for me. And I did speak to victims of like break-ins and counsellors to help me. And people to install, certain security things because I was in such a bad way. I'll be honest, and it to some is quite embarrassing, but for months I wouldn't sleep in my own bed. I slept in my mum's bed for months. It was months because I was so terrified, even though ironically enough this happened at 1 in the afternoon. My anxiety was so bad at night. I couldn't be alone. These were all the repercussions that started to happen, which I'll go into for a minute, but I'll just continue to what happened when I came back home. So obviously my dad had been on the phone to the police and insurance. They'd taken the car, they'd taken my brother and myself's new laptop. We both got a laptop literally 2 days before, and they'd taken them. They'd taken iPods, they'd taken my passport, which really freaked me out because, it's like it's you, isn't it? And it's personal. It really disturbed me. They'd rummaged through drawers, they'd taken pillowcases to put the stuff in, they'd taken my mum's jewellery, they'd taken nothing that was valuable, but still personal things. That's the worst thing. It's not the materialism, it's the personal, it's the violation. It's horrific. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It was always one of my worst fears, and unfortunately it happened. They took basically everything, thousands of pounds worth of things, and they took the car to take with, I think, to carry stuff, because the police did end up finding the car. It wasn't that far away from us, but my dad understood and he agreed. We couldn't have it back because it was a violation of like privacy. It was disgraceful. I wouldn't go in the car if you paid me. So we ended up selling the car and getting a new one, but there was like crowbars and things in there, and that really freaked me out. The police worked out, like from investigation, that they obviously, it was a random thing. They followed the minibus, thinking people were going on holiday, not knowing I was in there. That's why they were erratically ringing the doorbell. And, just really bad luck, basically. I don't think they ever found them, but, what can you do? Then after this happened, obviously already suffering with anxiety, social anxiety, depression and obsessive compulsive disorder. Then added post-traumatic stress disorder, which I noticed. I can tell you all the things now because now I can see it all. Basically, my paranoia, every car that was outside. This is still ongoing to today, but in a lesser version. But it makes you very cynical on life, on people. I was paranoid anytime I'd see a car. This was at the worst. Any new car, any noise. Who is this? What are they doing? Couldn't be in the house on my own. Since then, I haven't been in the house on my own for probably a handful of times. I can't do it. I mean, I can, but it's extremely hard for me, as you can probably imagine. When the doorbell rung, I would never answer the doorbell, freak out. I'd have panic attacks when the door went. Couldn't be downstairs alone. Had to always have someone in the room with me. Obviously, was sleeping in my mum's bed. My dad was in my bed. I was, a mess, an absolute mess. And these people had done this to me. I couldn't, if someone rang, I didn't know who it was. If someone, I'd assume I'd make up, I'd do a whole, secret, mission thing, thinking, who is this? What are they doing? Why are they going to do this? When it's just a normal person, my mind would go out of control. I'd plan escape routes. Couldn't sleep properly. Still have trouble sleeping now, but it's not as bad. Wake up with anxiety and panic and fear, waiting to be murdered, waiting to be kidnapped. This is still ongoing, but it's not as bad. Waiting to be raped, waiting to be held hostage, waiting for all these things to happen because of these people who've done this. Now, the irony is, if this had happened, if someone came in and were like, can I just have this? I'd just be like, have it, whatever. It's not it's not the money, it's not the value, it's the personal stuff on there, all my photos, all my, stuff that was, on there, learning about you when it's personal. It's not fair. We haven't invited you in. The breaking in, we had to get new doors, we had to get, new everything. It really wrecked, and not just me, wrecked everyone's, self, and still to this day, I'm quite cynical. It really, really messed me up, and it'll be 4 years in 2015 September, and still every day I think about it, I feel the repercussions, I feel the anxiety, and I'll never forget that terror I felt, and I know it's been just over 3 years, and I will never feel safe in my home again, because that is a violation that no one if you haven't been through it, you will never know what it feels like to have your home, the safest place you feel, to be violated. I'll never feel safe in my home, and I think no one should have to go through that, and no one should have to lose that. Obviously after that happened, I'd already tried a few therapists for my other mental issues, but I wasn't successful, and I did start seeing a lovely psychiatrist and doctor. They helped me a lot, but that's another different story. But anyway, as you can see, obviously that was very negative and depressing. The positive is I'm here, I've got through it. Yes, it's still a part of my life, and it does hold me back in some ways, but I don't let it define me. I don't let it control me. I pity those people, because at the end of the day, all they thought about was the material gain and the money and themselves. They didn't think about what they'd done to this 17-year-old girl, to her life, what I was already going through. They broke me, absolutely mentally broke me. But I'm still here now. I'm in a lot better place, and I just want to say, I really want to thank everyone who has messaged me, because when that message came, I had a few messages of support, and I had one person who said they'd also been through the same thing, and obviously I've not known anyone who has been through it as well, so to know that I'm not alone is really, really heartwarming. And everyone that's supported me through my mental recovery, it really means a lot, and I hope this video can help in some way. and make you guys know that all these feelings you guys will feel if you've been through this or are going through this. I've felt it too, and it's hell, and you wouldn't wish it on anyone. You'd much rather break a bone because people understand, people can see that. But unless you've been through something like this, it's hard to understand and relate to. So just remember, if you're not going through this but you know someone who is, support and understanding is key. That's all they need. They just need love and affection, and to know that it's going to be okay. And I just want to say that, you know, I'm always here. I'm really honest and open about all this, because in the past I wasn't, because I was ashamed and felt the stigma from society, but I don't care now. And I just want you guys to know I'm always here, and you can always message me. You're really not alone. Don't feel alone like I felt, because it does get better. And 3 years on, you know, here I am. I'm looking a lot better than I was at the time, and you know, I'm recording videos and I like myself, and I don't let this define me. So you guys know I'm always here, and thank you for watching. I really hope this helps in some way. Bye guys.